Things we hold too close, we cannot see. So I want to let all that I hold sacred go free. Oh, I know staring at the sun will make me blind. So I need some time in darkness, yes, yes, to keep me in the light. Dreams we hold too tight cannot come true. So I want to give all of my old dreams to you. Oh, I know I could ride this train from here to the day I die, but I'd rather check my baggage here than tote it around the sky. Oh, no. No, 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 no. Things we know
Good morning, everybody. We are here again for our online service from All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church in Shreveport. We've had some discussion about it this morning, but we've kind of concluded that this is our 52nd weekly service that we were online for. We've changed how we've done it a little bit along the way, but this is number 52. Next week we start the year over again. Just now when the choir were singing, I don't know how many of you know the way that we do these services. The people that are presenting are actually here on a Zoom call together in real time. We don't do a lot of recordings ahead of time to make it all polished. We want to be together. And just now in the prelude, when the choir was singing in video, the virtual choirs, because we can't do that in person yet, singing Gather the Spirit, when I looked and saw a couple of people on the Zoom call singing along with me and the video, I started to get choked up. The idea of raising our voices together is so real to me and so meaningful. So I want to thank y'all for that. But I want to encourage those of you who are sharing this service with us to, when things come along to participate in, please do that. There's something a whole lot more stirring in our spirits and regenerative and nurturing about being a participant rather than an observer. So as we go along, please remember that this is a congregation that's formed on covenant, not creed. We don't have to think alike to love alike. So whoever you are, whatever your age, race, origin, orientation, background, status, ability, identity, if you care to be here with us in a mutually respectful environment, you are always welcome. We're going to front load the service with a little bit of information about what's going on this week so that we can stay informed with one another, and then we will move into the service. Hang on just a second. Things change on my phone. Here we go.
I do love the jaunty transitional music. Good morning. My name is Amanda Lawrence. I'm currently serving as the vice president of the board. I'm also the chair of the Food, Folks, and Fun Committee, which has been sadly absent for the last 52 weeks, but someday we'll be back together. And the party we're gonna have when we finally get to do it is gonna be something special. In the meantime, there are still things happening. We're still trying to keep our community in contact with each other as much as we can. One of those ways is with our Wednesday Zoom lunches, which will happen this Wednesday as usual. The Zoom lunch link and the information and other information about things going on at All Souls can be found in the email newsletter. So if you haven't signed up for the email newsletter, that's a great way to know what's going on. We promise not to fill your inbox. It's usually maybe 2 emails a week, something like that, and they're chock full of useful information. One of the things you'll find in that email is always ways that you can support All Souls. This community is supported only by itself. We aren't given funds or anything else by the denomination. So what we have thanks to the generosity of our members. There's a link, I suspect, that webmaster extraordinaire Steve Caldwell will put in the comments any second now, where you can donate online to support All Souls with your financial gifts. We also need gifts of your time and talent as well. The grounds of the church, which most of us haven't seen much of, still have to be maintained, and they're maintained by volunteers. The next workday is this coming Saturday, March 13th. There are inside and outside jobs. As spring comes, there are more sort of important things to be done and fun things to be done. We would love to have you there to help us. The workday, of course, is very COVID conscious. Be sure to bring your mask and help us keep everyone safe and healthy. There are also a couple of ways that you can help All Souls support our community. We have a giveaway the plate recipient. All collection plate contributions for the month of March are going to go to Hope House. The organizations that tried to support our homeless population during the snowpocalypse did a pretty amazing job of supporting them in extraordinary circumstances. And we'd like to try to support Hope House, which is a day shelter for the homeless in downtown Shreveport. So what we're asking this month is that if you'll send those donations to All Souls, and then we'll send a check to Hope House at the end of the month. You can do this sort of old school by putting a check in an envelope and finding a stamp and putting it on there and sending it to the church. Be sure you enclose a note or a message on the memo line about if the check should be divided between pledge and collection plate contributions. But you can also go online if you're like me and are bad at things like envelopes and stamps. That same link where you can donate to help the church by paying an online pledge, you can also use that to contribute to the collection plate, which will go to Hope House this month. Please help us support this incredibly worthy organization. One final note, don't forget that next week is Spring Forward. A lot of us use our phones as timers, but if you don't, I would hate for you to miss our service because of your phone or your alarm clock not being smart enough to tell you what day it is. I suspect that our Director of Religious Education might have a solution to that plan, which is if you set your alarm to go to Adult RE and then the worst happens, then you'll still make it in time for church.
I love that, Amanda. I think that is a perfect solution. So if you will join us for adult religious education, we would love to see you. We are going to be moving out of our World Religions unit this morning. We actually did Shinto from Japan, so have Mount Fuji in my background as for that. But we will be moving out of that into a social justice unit where we'll be talking more about our efforts to continue to work to dismantle racism and our own unconscious bias and all of those things. We'll be kind of working through some of that stuff probably starting next week. So we look forward to seeing you there. And also, I wanted to remind you of the Highland Blessing Dinner. It is now on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 6 p.m. It's at 520 Olive Street at the Highland Center. It is carry out or drive up and walk out, carry out only. The work goes fast. You get to work with good people. It's very safe. Everybody wears their mask and there are gloves provided. And so it's very safe. And if you're not at high risk, and especially if you've been vaccinated and things are a little bit safer for you, not that we can go hog wild now, right? We still need to be careful. We still need to observe precautions, but please, if you can join us and help out, we've been very, very busy. There have been a lot of people coming to seek food that have never had to do that before. So if you can help us out, we really appreciate it. We will also be having family religious education today at 1:00 p.m. And we will also be looking at a story from the Shinto tradition and a little bit about that tradition, and also playing some games and having some fun as usual. And I believe that is I am going to introduce you to Melissa Lewis, who is going to be back at the church again this afternoon, and she will tell you all about that.
Do I just go ahead and talk, Susan? Am I on there? Okay. Yes, I'm Melissa Lewis, and I will be collecting for the food pantry today. Again, I did last week. We're looking for small items of hygiene, small bars of soap, small toothpaste, toothbrush, shampoos, conditioner, anything small you may have. Please no mouthwash. I'll be there from 2 to 4 today at the church, and come by and see me. Thank you.
Thank all of you. I appreciate that. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears for a second and take a couple of deep breaths. Let the worries of the world fall away for just a few minutes. And let's be together in a spirit of worship. Mindful of truth, ever exceeding our knowledge, and community, ever exceeding our practice. Reverently, we come together, beginning with ourselves as we are, to share the strength of integrity and the heritage of the Spirit in the unending quest for wisdom and love. Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. Spirit of life, come to us to break down barriers, to widen horizons, to make us less judgmental. Help us to see the larger picture and the kinder conclusion, to love and let live, to embrace and forgive, to sustain and care. Help us to reach out to our better selves, that we may love more, hate less, care more, and reject less, that bound together by understanding, we may sustain each other through trial and tribulation, through joy and happiness, through sickness and health. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion toward ourselves and towards all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the suffering that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. This morning we have Lily Loggins to lead us in our children's chalice lighting.
Go. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hand. This is the church of the loving heart.
We really appreciate all the videos we have received from the young people to do the parts that they can't be present for in our service. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. In a world filled with the darkness of ignorance, let us bring the light of reason. In a world filled with the darkness of despair, may we share the light of hope. In a world filled with the darkness of hate, let us shine the light of love. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of wisdom and warmth, welcoming of multiple truths. I'd like to ask Melissa Lewis, if she will, to lead us, please, in our unison affirmation, and let's say that together.
I am Melissa Lewis. This is our unison affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the sacred. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Thank you so much, Melissa. We have a hymn that's coming up, and it's a video from another Unitarian church, but it has the lyrics embedded in it. And it's familiar to people that have been around this denomination anywhere for very long. It's called Come Sing a Song With Me. And during the course of the song, it invites us to do things together. And the reason it invites us to do those things together is so that we can better understand one another's minds, the way that we think, so that as a result, we can bring positive relationship to that sharing of things. Anyway, sing along with it, if you will, please.
Good morning again. I have a story for you. There are two stories called Say Anything. One of them, Ava Kate Peck read for us recently, which is about activism and how all of us can be part of that. This is the version of Say Something that is by Peggy Ann Moss, and it's also about a kind of activism, but a little bit more personal, a little bit more day-to-day in your everyday life. The kinds of things you can do. Today, Reverend Barbara is talking about bias. Bias is another word for prejudice, or another word for forming your thoughts and opinions about people before you've really had a chance to learn more about them. And so I like this story because it's not only about speaking up about bias in others, speaking up when you see it happening, which is always an important thing, because bias often leads to bullying and other kinds of really harmful behavior. And so to speak up when you see that, it can be very important and can be very helpful to someone who is suffering that from others. But it's also about looking within yourself for the biases that you maybe don't realize are there. And that's what kind of happens to the young girl in this story. So let's hear it. There's a kid in my school who gets picked on all the time. I think he's sad. I think he's sad because he keeps his head down when he walks down the hall. And he hardly ever says hello. I don't pick on him. I feel sorry for him. There's another kid in my school who gets teased. He gets called names. When he walks through the halls, kids push him and tell him he's slow. I walk on the other side of the hall. I don't say those things. Girl who rides on my bus always sits alone. Sometimes kids throw things at her and call her names, and the girls who sit behind her laugh. I don't laugh. I don't say anything. One day, my friends were out, and I had to sit alone in the cafeteria. Some kids came over to me and started telling jokes. I laughed until the jokes started to be about me. My face burned. I looked down at the table. I sat on my hands to keep them from moving so much. I tried not to cry, but it was hard not to cry. And when they saw my face was wet, the kids started laughing. I wished I could stop crying. I wished I could disappear. Poof. When the kids left, I looked around the cafeteria, and I was surprised to see that the cafeteria was full of students. There were even kids I knew sitting at the table right next to mine. They were looking at me, and I could tell they felt sorry for me. When I got home, I told my big brother that I was mad at the kids at the table next to mine. He just shrugged and said, "Why? They didn't do anything." "Right," I said. And on the bus the next day, I sat next to the girl who always sits alone. She's really funny. So she learned something about her own bias, that even though she wasn't being harmful and felt sorry for these kids, she had never tried to connect with them, tried to reach out and tried to help them. And I know we've got some children and youth in our church who have done some very brave things and have spoken out and have helped out people who maybe were being teased at school. And I appreciate that so much. And whenever we can do that, and whenever we can kind of confront ourselves, kind of talk to ourselves about, what am I thinking about this person that I may not that I may not know the whole story. We talked last week about knowing the whole story. And so think about that as you go about your week, and thanks for listening.
I'm not sure if I have any audio here. Can y'all hear me? Good morning. For today's meditation, let yourself find a comfortable position, body balanced, spine straight. Begin with a deep, comfortable breath, shifting your attention to your heart space. And imagine breathing in and out of your heart. Allow your breath to deepen and slow. Allow your breath to be soft and kind. In this moment of sacred silence, reflect. I long for beloved community. I long to share my hopes and dreams with others. I want to feel the warmth of real connection and communication. I want to share the songs that inspire and encourage the heart on its long journey. For that dream to become real in this life journey, I have a task. For my heart to know the deep and healing embrace of others, I must see with unclouded vision. To hear the living voice behind the words of others, I must hear without distortion. I go now within, and in this moment, await the wisdom that will bring healing and wholeness, and the compassion that will unite hearts in peace and presence. In this place of mindful wisdom, I see there is much to obscure my perception of the core humanity that we all share. I choose now to acknowledge and release all that blocks the path to beloved community. There are stories about myself and others that I have never questioned, stories of difference and limitation. I let them go. There are so many biases of my culture and society, habits of comfort that support inequality and separation. I let them go. There are dark projections of my own shadow, unwanted parts of myself that I see in others. I bring these into the light of wholeness and healing, and I let them go. In this sacred moment, I trust that place in the human heart that is free, unclouded by the suffering of the past, unobscured by fear of the future. That place in the heart that is forever awake and kind. In this moment, I center in my breath. Breathing in, I embrace the infinite potential of the human spirit. Breathing out, I release every limitation that could veil the beauty of that spirit.
I've asked Miss Susan to join me in what would, in ordinary times, be a responsive reading. And you may be familiar with it, but I'm not having you do it with me today, just the two of us. It's by William Ellery Channing, and it's called The Free Mind. I call that mind free, which masters the senses and which recognizes its own reality and greatness.
Which passes life not in asking what it shall eat or drink, but in hungering, thirsting, and seeking after righteousness.
I call that mind free, which jealously guards its intellectual rights and powers, which does not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith.
Which opens itself to light whencesoever it may come, which receives new truth as an angel from heaven.
I call that mind free, which is not passively framed by outward circumstances and is not the creature of accidental impulse.
Which discovers everywhere the radiant signatures of the infinite spirit, and in them finds help to its own spiritual enlargement.
I call that mind free, which protects itself against the usurpations of society and which does not cower to human opinion.
Which refuses to be the slave or tool of the many or the few, and guards its empire over itself as nobler than the empire of the world.
I call that mind free, which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past, nor live on its old virtues.
But which listens for new and higher monitions of conscience, and rejoices to pour itself forth in fresh and higher exertions.
I call that mind free, which sets no bounds to its love, which wherever they are seen delights in virtue and sympathizes with suffering.
Which recognizes in all human beings the image of God and the rights of God's children, and offers itself up a willing sacrifice to the cause of humankind.
I call that mind free, which has cast off all fear but that of wrongdoing, and which no menace or peril can enthrall.
Which is calm in the midst of tumults, and possesses itself though all else be lost.
So today, the title of my message is Against the Bias. And against the bias comes from sewing. And in fabric, actually, there's the warp, which is the length of the fabric, the weft, which is the sideways weave of the fabric, and the bias runs diagonally to that at 45 degrees. There are two biases. In the bias on the fabric is the strength and the flexibility. So if you're going with the grain of what I will call the grain of the fabric, what would be the grain if we were talking about wood? If you go with the grain, you're not going with the bias. The bias is, in that case, a good thing. So against the bias would be a good thing. No, against the bias would be a bad thing. In wood, going against the grain, with the grain is where the strength is, and going across the grain is where things start to splinter. So that's just about some ideas of bias and against the bias. The title could be taken as the opposite of what I'm trying to get to ultimately today. I will be talking about bias as a preformed, pre-critical conclusion about something. Years ago, there was an artist named Bill Johnson who was a member of our congregation. Many of you will remember him. He had come to us from the West and had previously been a part of the Science of Mind church. Bill has since passed away, but some of his artwork still hangs in the building or different places. He always used to walk around expressing his wish to teach classes on, quote, how to see. Well, being Unitarian Universalists, people who like to think for ourselves, or like to think we think for ourselves, I'm afraid there weren't a whole lot of takers on Bill's class. I have wondered from time to time what I might have learned from him had I been willing to try on his perspective for a few hours here and there. There are all sorts of reasons these days to wonder how in the world people come to see things the way they see them. Facts don't always have that much to do with it, including for us, so reserve judgment here. Because clearly people around us aren't sharing the same reality that I am, or perhaps we are, and if by chance you and I happen to see things the same way, we can still say that. We can easily find ourselves disquieted, agitated, or even frightened by how befuddling people can be. Whether that's our neighbor with hateful bumper stickers, a politician defying everything that we recognize as logic, or droves of people moving to undo that which has preserved our relative freedoms for 250 years. In a good bit of the material I've been reading lately, and things that I read regularly, their topic has turned towards bias. It's a recurring theme, from all these different places. And trying to find ways to navigate, negotiate, or nullify this chasm between one group and another in America, we are looking for ways to better understand one another and how we got here. If there is to be any chance of cutting the Gordian knot, we are beginning to recognize that we will have to do things new ways. As uncomfortable as that might be, if we want things to change, we have to be willing to change. Part of that change might be by learning more about our understandings and how they are formed. You've heard me mention Richard Rohr and the Center for Action and Contemplation before. He and two other instructors for the center, or the school, if you would like to consider it that way, have put out a 6-part podcast called Learning to See, thus the reference to Bill Johnson that I made a second ago. In this series, they discuss a list of 13 biases assembled by one of the instructors, Brian McLaren, who is an author, a pastor, a leading figure in what has been called or is called the emerging church, and someone who a few years back, Time Magazine ranked as one of the 25 most influential evangelicals in the country. While Brian McLaren managed to wrangle this list of 13 biases into a list that each one begins with a C, it's still, 13 is still a lot. So I don't imagine that we're going to be memorizing this list. It's not all that catchy. And if you really want to remember the things as we go through them, and I'm going to brush through them real quickly, you'll probably want to write them down. The podcasts are really good and interesting. The third person in that discussion is Reverend Jackie Lewis from Middle Collegiate Church in New York, which is the oldest continuously active church and the oldest corporation in North America. It's associated with the United Church of Christ, who works with us on the Our Whole Lives comprehensive sex education program. Anyway, though the list is not catchy, I would suggest if you want to remember it, take notes. If we begin to spot our own biases, which is why I want to go through the list, we have a prayer at modifying them into something less mindless or reactive or habitual and into something more mindful. Maybe changing in degrees. Not saying that we're going to join forces with what we might feel is the opposition, but our understandings can shift into healing ways. Right now, my prayer is that we can begin to receive new insight into ourselves to fuel more successful interactions with one another and our neighbors. Richard Rohr quoted a Latin phrase from the 13th century. It comes from John Duns Scotus and maybe Aquinas. Anyway, the Latin is quid recipitor ad modum recipientis. It's kind of fun to say, so excuse me for that. But it means whatever is received according to the manner of the receiver. You know, I guess it's pretty similar to we can only hear what we're ready to hear or see what we're ready to see. But McLaren writes, people can't see what they can't see. Their biases get in the way, surrounding them like a high wall, trapping them, and also the S's, I might add, not just the thems, in ignorance, deception, and delusion. No amount of reasoning or argument will get through to them or us unless we first learn how to break down the walls of bias. So the list begins, I'm going to just run through them kind of quickly and tell you a sentence perhaps about each one. The first is confirmation bias, which is kind of what I was just talking about. We judge new ideas on the ease with which they fit in with and confirm the only standard we have, which is old ideas, old information, and the authorities we trust. As a result, our framing story, belief system, or paradigm excludes whatever doesn't fit with what we already think or see. The second is complexity bias. Our brains prefer a simple falsehood to a complex truth. I don't know if I'll get to this point I was about to make or not. But then there's community bias. Humans are social animals. Community bias. It's almost impossible to see what our community doesn't, can't, or won't see, whatever our community is. Complementary bias. So we got confirmation, complexity, community. Now we're on complementarity bias. If you're hostile to my ideas, I'll be hostile to yours. If you're curious and respectful towards my ideas, I'll respond in kind. You know, not all of these are always true, but all of them are true some of the time, and most of them are things we're going to recognize in ourselves to some extent, if we're honest, I think. Maybe some of you are above them. My hat's off to you if that's the case. Then there's competency bias. We don't know how much or little we know because we don't know how much or little others know. In other words, incompetent people assume that most other people are about as incompetent as they are. As a result, they underestimate their own incompetence and consider themselves at least of average competence. You know, there's always somebody smarter, there's always somebody not as smart. But we tend to think that other people are at least as capable of grasping things as we are. Then there's consciousness bias. Some things simply can't be seen from where I am right now. But if I keep growing, maturing, and developing, someday I will be able to see what is now inaccessible to me. Spiritual growth. Then there's comfort or complacency bias. I prefer not to have my comfort disrupted. If something makes me uncomfortable, I am less likely to include it in my frame than I am things that are comfortable. Then there's the conservative/liberal bias. I lean toward nurturing, fairness, and kindness, which is one side of the equation linguistically. The other is, I lean towards one or the other. The other is towards strictly enforced purity, loyalty, liberty, and authority as an expression of political identity. We choose one of those or lean more in one direction or the other. None of those things in certain contexts are bad things. What makes the chasm there so vast is the priority level we give each of those things. Then there's the confidence bias. I'm attracted to confidence, even if it's false. Or these I statements are Brian McLaren's. I often prefer the bold lie to the hesitant truth. If somebody says with a lot of conviction that this is true, I'm more inclined to believe that than I am, say, if I see somebody on a witness stand saying, kind of being really unsure of what they're saying and saying something different. Then there's the catastrophe or normalcy bias. I remember dramatic catastrophes, but don't notice gradual decline or improvement. Big things catch my attention, but the subtleties of change don't. They just kind of feel normal as they shift. Then there's a contact bias. When I don't have intense and sustained personal contact with the other, my prejudices and false assumptions go unchallenged. Then there's conspiracy bias. Under stress or shame, our brains are attracted to stories that relieve us, exonerate us, or portray us as innocent victims of malicious conspirators. Now, today is the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, or it's been 56 years since Bloody Sunday in Selma. There were all kinds of people on all sides of that equation talking about conspiracies. People were afraid communists were at work, and people were afraid the FBI was working against this and that. And I'm not going into what may be true or false, but there were conspiracy convictions formed on both sides of that. Now, I bump up against my biases regularly. In another article about biases, they suggest that we might want to treat them not treat things that go against our comfort level or our biases, or more, instead of doing it like soldiers, do it like scouts. Do it with curiosity. Go to map the terrain and learn about what's there rather than just going at it with an assault. Assaults, arguments don't change people's minds in any sort of, I would say, outside of a debate, an official debate context. And I'm not sure they change people's minds there. Maybe they do. While we could, of course, conceive of the scouting exercise as strategic for winning the fight, like being spies, I would encourage us to just use it as investigating what's behind the lines, not to strengthen battle, but to facilitate peace. I get rather caught up in wanting people to do what I think is the right thing, or what maybe some outside force has told me is the right thing. I've had my vaccinations, so I'm not too terribly concerned with my being at risk when I'm around other people, like I would have been before. My mother, for whom I do some care, has also had hers. Nevertheless, we are all being asked to remain mindful of others and continue safe practices even after vaccinations. Everybody's sick of the masks. Everybody's longing for closeness with other people, but we are still being asked to continue safe practices. That makes sense to me because we don't know yet who all may still be capable of carrying COVID. Those who've had it, those who have been vaccinated, those who are asymptomatic, and we're still getting data about the new variants and modified strains and efficacy. Anyway, when we're being asked to remain vigilant so that we might stay ahead of the virus, all kinds of people see themselves as all kinds of exceptions. People want to take their masks off when they talk so that they can be more easily heard. But that's when they are actually emitting the most moisture or droplets. Sitting and listening, not so much. People take off their masks to eat and drink, but they don't put them back on afterwards when they're engaged in conversation. I see people sitting outside well, inside one coffee shop in town with masks off for hours. Their coffee was gone a long time ago. Anyway, people who've had COVID don't feel they need to wear masks because they're not at risk. But right out the gate, we were told that mask wearing was more about keeping us from infecting somebody else than it was keeping us from being infected. I know that has been modified over time, but that's where it started. And at any rate, it's respectful to others to continue to wear masks because those around them don't know our story or circumstances and shouldn't have to guess whether we are COVID deniers, someone who's had it or been given our shots, or just self-indulgent or indifferent. You may completely disagree with my position on this matter, though I hope not. But we're being asked to continue distancing and masking. I think it's right. I think it's the right thing to do. And I have biased reactions to those who see it differently. Even so, slowly, I'm becoming a witness to the emotional response that things like that elicit from me, and becoming remotely aware of these filters that I carry that ahead of time frame my response to stuff. And just the slightest awareness of specific responses, I'm empowered to at least choose the temperature of my outward response, or if I'll respond at all, engage at all. The new process of witnessing my internal responses buys me just enough time to begin to wonder what's going on inside those who arouse that particular bias in me. Richard Rohr says, I believe there are enough good-willed people out there who, if presented with a list of these biases, have the freedom to investigate how we can let go of that, how we can move beyond that. In the other article I referred to earlier with the soldiers and the scouts in it, they talked about the thing that when you're asking people to change their minds, you are actually asking them to change tribe. That's a big deal. Tribes are survival, tribes are instinctual, and the only way that we can really begin to change hearts and minds is by befriending people. Sitting and having a meal with someone somehow makes it harder to hate them. We're asking a lot of people if we ask them to change our minds. We're asking a lot of ourselves if we ask us to modify our minds. I'm not asking us to stop standing for what's right or speaking truth to power. But our biases are ingrained. And we will have to move against the instinct of a lot of our own biases to be part of the change we want to see in the world. That's a scary thing. Asking other people, or when other people change, it's frightening for them too. As I uncover more about my own biases, I empower myself to become more compassionate. When I'm mindful of the concerns of others, I can deepen my understanding. All of these are necessary tools for closing these gaping wounds in America. Let us continue to learn our own weaknesses and biases so that we may mold them into strengths. Let us continue to stand for justice and speak deeper truth and do all we can to bring solutions. I hope you'll join us in singing the closing hymn. The Spirit of the Holy dwells in each of us. The Spirit of love dwells in each of us. May the flame that it now befalls us to carry remind us that eternal love dwells in our hearts. May the flames remind us that the arc of the universe needs our embodied love and faith to bend toward justice. Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that hears this call. Blessed is your mind applied to discerning the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by going. Truly, blessed is the gift that you will become on this journey. May you go forth in peace. Namaste, Ashe, Amen. Blessed be, so be it.